Putin said that these sanctions will not be hurting the Russian economy. But that's not what Kremlin TV is saying. And as if that wasn't embarrassing enough, one of Russia's biggest refinery just halted all operations, all thanks to Ukrainian sanctions. Now, Putin is looking for help, but his Middle Eastern allies are actively turning on Russian economy. OPEC just announced that they will increase production to make up for any Russian shortfalls. This betrayal is exactly why, in a desperate move, Putin sent his senior envoy to the US to beg for mercy. But even that move could not hide the Russian economy's bankruptcy. Because all the while Putin is looking for a way out, Russian TV is talking about the impending economic collapse. Take a listen yourself.
For him
to suddenly show sincerity towards our country, while sitting across the ocean with all due respect and sympathy that other citizens may have, he doesn't seem much like an ally of our nation. The reduction in oil profits is a key issue for our budget deficit. And war is costly. They're systematically taking money from us. Zelensky is attacking refineries, and Trump sanctioned our two biggest oil companies. This will likely cause problems for India and China as well. And if they have, who will we sell? So it's not as straightforward. It's hard to dismiss this as just another minor annoyance. No, it's certainly not trivial or nonsensical.
Now, the
reason Russian TV, or I guess Kremlin TV, is talking so openly about an economic collapse is because things are not looking good in Russia. Look at this report. One of Russia's largest refineries has suspended all operations because of Ukrainian drones. This was none other than Russia's Razan oil refinery. It ranks 4th largest in the country, and it produces roughly 5% of all of Russia's refined oil products. Ukraine has been hitting this refinery non-stop over the last 12 months, and the most recent attack came just 2 days ago. Here's the aftermath.
They effing hit. Effing Fantomas.
Situations like this are exactly why Putin knew that when US announced its sanctions, it was horrible news for the Russian economy. Let me explain why. You see, Russia uses around 30% of the oil that it pumps out of its ground to refine it in domestic refineries, so refineries that are in the country. But because of Ukrainian drone attacks, those refineries cannot refine that oil. That means Putin's solution to this was to just send that extra crude oil to foreign countries, foreign refineries in China, India, Turkey. This way, Putin was still making some money. Now, a big problem here was that refined oil products are a lot more profitable than just shipping crude oil. But even then, Putin was at least making some money by shipping this oil to other countries. Well, now because of US sanctions, two of the biggest companies, oil companies in Russia, are just having a harder time exporting their crude oil. And that means Putin is getting squeezed from both sides. On one side, the domestic refineries cannot refine the oil so they can sell the oil products. And on the other side, he cannot even ship that oil to other countries because countries are afraid to openly buy from Russia because of sanctions. Now, if I can see this sitting over in a different country, I'm sure there are a lot of people inside Russia who can see exactly what's happening. And that's why Putin tried getting ahead of this news. He held an emergency press conference as soon as the sanctions were announced. And at this press conference, he was basically trying to make an argument that sanctions are really a good news for the Russian economy, because he was saying that the price of oil will now go up. And that means even though Russia may not be able to sell same amount of oil, they may have to sell less oil, they can sell it at a higher price and they'll have a higher profit margin. Take a listen to yourself, because he's horribly wrong this time.
But it's clear. Without hydrocarbons in the coming years, it won't work. This is obvious due to rising consumption. The world economy is growing and energy consumption increases. Supply can't grow sharply at once. If the amount of our oil on the global market drops sharply, prices will rise.
Уменьшится количество нашей нефти и нефтепродуктов на мировом рынке, то вырастут цены. И мы с моим американским коллегой тоже об этом.
I discussed this with my American colleague. What will it lead to? A sharp increase in oil and fuel prices, including at gas stations. And the US is no exception. Given the domestic political calendar, it's clear how sensitive some processes will be.
В тех же Штатах, то понятно, насколько чувствительны будут некоторые процессы в этой связи.
Now, Putin is not entirely incorrect. In fact, this is exactly what happened at the start of the invasion back in 2022. When sanctions came in on Russia after Putin launched his special military operation, the price of oil shot up to more than $100 per barrel, which meant Russia was actually making more money after the invasion than they were making before it. But that's not what's happening right now, even though Putin was hoping the same thing would repeat itself. You see, all the while the Russian oil is getting off the market, there is other supplies that is making up for all the Russian shortfall. And that supply is coming from none other than OPEC. Take a look at this report. OPEC says it's ready to raise oil output if required after US sanctions. Now, this is a great news for Ukraine and for anyone who wants peace in Ukraine. Because if it wasn't for OPEC raising their production, then Putin may actually benefit from sanctions, even though he would sell less oil. He would be selling it at such a higher price that the profit margins would be insane. But you see, it's not 2022 again when the oil prices shot up to more than $100 a barrel. Right now, the prices were around $57, $58 a barrel before the sanctions were announced a few days ago. And after the announcement, as I'm recording this at 12 p.m. Houston time, the oil prices now sit at $61 per barrel. Now, it has gone up, but that's nowhere close to actually having an impact on US consumers and then aka US policy. Because let's be honest, it doesn't matter who's in office, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. No one likes higher oil prices. Now, OPEC raising output is definitely a great news, and as the famous saying goes, there are no permanent friends or enemies in geopolitics, only permanent interest. If OPEC can make money while Russia is struggling, they don't care about Russia struggling. As if this wasn't bad enough, it seems the US has already prepared additional sanctions in case Russia still refuses to make peace in Ukraine. That means, even though things are bad in Russia right now, there's still room for them to go down even more. Take a listen to what NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is saying.
Look at the Russian economy, the long lines of cars into the gasoline stations, the fact that the Ukrainians have now hit 1/3 of the Russian oil and gas infrastructure, which is the main backbone of their economy. The French president now organizing in Europe for countries to do much more against this shadow fleet, which is also a main source of income for the Russians. All of this will help to change the calculus. But always, because you, the Americans, you have the biggest economy in the world, the biggest military in the world, and you have a president which is laser focused on getting this thing ended. And collectively, we will change Putin's calculus and get him to the table and get this ceasefire going. I'm absolutely convinced. It may not be today or tomorrow, but we will get there.
This is exactly why a senior Russian envoy just rushed his way to the US to negotiate the sanctions. Now, he's an important guy, so pay attention. His name is Kirill Dmitriev, and it's rumored that he's next in line in case something happens to Putin. And now he's here in the United States saying that sanctions are not really a big deal. But he's also asking that, hey, can we please remove them? This is why I always say we should not look at what Russians are saying. We should look at what they are doing. And the fact that he flew over here just a day after sanctions were announced tells us how much pressure the sanctions are truly putting on the Russian economy and, of course, on Putin. Now, even though he's here, he is not giving up the narrative of blaming Ukraine for peace. He's saying it's Ukraine who don't want negotiations.
We see that it is Ukraine that is dragging out the negotiations, that it is Ukraine that does not want to resolve the problems, the accumulated issues that need to be addressed. And so we will also convey to our American colleagues that Ukraine, unfortunately, is disrupting the necessary dialogue. And it is disrupting it at the request of the British, at the request of the Europeans, who want the conflict to continue.
Now let me clarify this for everyone. No one's asking Russia to go back to pre-2022 borders or pre-2014 borders. President Trump and Ukrainians are asking Russians to just stop where they are right now. And Russia is refusing to accept a ceasefire, even though Ukraine has unconditionally accepted it. Ukraine is okay with stop fighting right now and then negotiate some kind of long-term peace. What Russia truly wants is a Ukrainian surrender, and they keep blaming Ukraine for not wanting peace because they don't want to surrender. I think this is where it's perfect to play this clip of President Reagan, who said that the quickest way to peace is surrender, but that's not what the United States stands for. Listen in.
As saying to 1 billion human beings now enslaved behind the Iron Curtain, give up your dreams of freedom, because to save our own skins, we're willing to make a deal with your slave masters. Alexander Hamilton said, a nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one. Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? Well, Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance.
I think that's a very perfect way of ending this video. Of course, sanctions don't mean that the Russian economy will collapse tomorrow, but it's already feeling the pressure. We can see that from stuff happening inside Russia, and of course, Russian politicians and diplomats rushing to US to negotiate some kind of pause. Now, he's doing a lot of TV interviews while he's here in the United States, and we'll cover that in our next video. And also, he's meeting with US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff tomorrow, so we'll cover how that meeting goes tomorrow. So please be sure to hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss those videos.